All right. Welcome back to another episode of A Week with the incorrigible Luddite and myself, Jimmy Duster. Thank you to all that have been tuning in for these. Actually, last week's show, the first listen album battle between Journey's debut and the Creatures has been well viewed, and we appreciate your comments on there. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to get notified of new content. Today we got a great one. As you can tell by the two gentlemen standing behind me here, we have our top 5 Led Zeppelin songs. Now, these are our favorite songs. They may not be the best songs, probably aren't going to be exactly the ones that I know our lists are different. I'm sure your list and my list is going to be different from all the viewers out there too. But these are our favorite songs that mean something to us, whether it be, just we like the solo in it, or we like, Bonham's drumming, or it just, hit a special time in our lives. But these are our 5 favorite Led Zeppelin songs. So I'm going to start off. We're going to go, excuse me, we're going to count down from 5 to 1. So briefly, I wouldn't say a huge Led Zeppelin fan growing up. I know you were at one time, and I'm sure you'll talk about that. Obviously knew who Led Zeppelin was. One of the first albums I ever purchased that I remember having around the house was Presence. And I remember not really listening to that album a whole lot, but just looking at it all the time.
Did you try to figure out what the album cover meant?
Yeah, that strange obelisk-shaped thing that was.
It's something. It has something to do with 2001, maybe 2001: A Space Odyssey. Maybe.
I don't know. I just remember that being on there, and me being, I don't know, like 8-10 years old, and just being fascinated with that on there. So, but I remember. I don't remember if I had bought the album or if someone had the album in the neighborhood or what. But I just remember looking at that album in my basement with my drum set I got for Christmas, and with that I'd written in marker "Kiss" on there, and thought I was Peter Criss or something. But anyway, that didn't last because I don't play drums at all anymore. So, but that was my intro to Led Zeppelin, and of course I knew all the radio hits. They were all over the radio growing up. And even album cuts. QFM 96 here locally played a lot of the deeper tracks and stuff, and you couldn't seemed like every 3rd or 4th song on the radio was Led Zeppelin for a period.
Yeah, they're in Columbus, Ohio anyway. They were definitely the most played band on classic rock radio by a long shot. Yeah. I think Pink Floyd probably would have came the closest to them, but they used to have a whole lot of lead. Remember that on QFM?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So, and they would play some of their deeper cuts. Not really Led Zeppelin. Do they really have any deep cuts? They've got a few.
That's true. They got
a few. And actually, one of them's going to make my top 5. But I think oversaturation was one of the things that over the years that kind of led me away from their music. They still have some great music. There's no doubt about it. I think, though, what happened when I was around 19 or 20, I really started to listen to the Doors a lot, and they kind of supplanted them. As far as like kind of the mystical sound went.
Yeah,
those bands share that trait, I think. But I just was more enamored with the Doors, and I still think they're a great band. But as I reviewed the catalog again, going back over it, I realized that I don't connect with a lot of it anymore, but they do have some spectacular moments, and I'm going to mention those.
Yeah, and I started listening to them a lot right around the age of 23, 24, 25, right around in there. Was spending a lot of time, about the time I started, well, shortly after I started playing guitar, I started listening to a lot of Zeppelin stuff, and grew to really appreciate Jimmy Page, and was always a Robert Plant fan. I remember, I think you went with me when we had second row seats to Robert Plant in Cleveland, and Joan Jett opened up.
Yeah, Joan Jett opened the show. That's such a bizarre pairing. I remember that.
Great show, though. It was a great show. So that was about the time I started listening to a lot of Zeppelin. And then as I got older, the last 10 years, I can't tell you the last time I purposely put on Zeppelin to listen to until this past week.
The last song that I heard by Led Zeppelin before this week, really, was in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And that song was Thank You.
Yeah.
And I forget why I heard it or where I heard it, but it's kind of resonating a little bit at this point. But in 2016, I heard Thank You, and all I can remember is how much I do like the Duran Duran cover a lot more. I've got to be completely honest.
I haven't heard that. I'll check that out.
Oh, it's very good. It's very good.
Check that out. Well, it was an interesting study for me this week because, you know, I would just put Led Zeppelin in and put it on shuffle play, and then it'd be like, ooh, I remember this song. Yeah, this is a really good song. So I whittled my list over the days from about 50 songs down to about 25, down to about 10, to my final 5 with a couple in honorable mentions we'll get to later. But we'll start off with my number 5 from the Physical Graffiti album. The thing that struck me about the song 10 Years Gone is just, to me, it's very hypnotic, and I would add the word lovely to it. It's got that walk down in the melody that's similar to the Beatles. What song am I? Dear Prudence.
Okay.
And also similar to the walk down in another Zeppelin song, Stairway to Heaven. You know, that walk down from the major seventh or from the root to the major seventh to the dominant seventh and then to the sixth, ultimately in there. And to me, it's just a very lovely song. Page's guitar works fantastic on it. So that's my number 5, 10 Years Gone from Physical Graffiti.
I will say that that song has great guitar work by Jimmy Page.
Yeah.
I don't love the vocals on that song, but the guitar work is fantastic.
Yeah.
Just to be completely honest. Well, my number 5, I'm going to be completely honest here. I think one of the artists that we covered last week, a lot of the reason I picked this at number 5 was because of listening to that record, which I do listen to 3 or 4 times a year. The Creatures Boomerang. That's the 12-inch of Standing There. But I think listening to that record really made me appreciate a Led Zeppelin song a lot. And that song is Fool in the Rain. And that's my number 5. I always like the drumming. And I'll show you the CD for this. I don't have any Led Zeppelin on vinyl, by the way. But this is the CD for Into the Outdoor. That's the album that Fool in the Rain is on. It's their last album before, sadly, John Bonham passed away in 1980. I think it's probably their second best record. For me personally, I know most Led Zeppelin fans would feel totally differently about that, but I like the introduction of some new sounds on the record, and I think it works really well. There's one track on the record that I can't stand, but I'm not going to mention that right now. But Fool in the Rain is great. Love the samba breakdown in it, kind of the carnival feel. Jimmy's guitar solo in the song is really, really excellent, and he's playing kind of in a different style guitar-wise. It's almost kind of jazzy on that. It has a kind of a jazzy feel. Plant's vocals on this song, I don't mind them at all because he's singing a lower register on this track, I think. He's not quite as, helium-esque as he is on some of the early stuff, and I think it works really well with the song, but I think the song's definitely a 10 out of 10. It was kind of a pop song. It was a hit on the radio. What I always loved about the song was John Bonham's drumming. Every time I hear it on the radio, it's like, oh, you just that probably is my favorite John Bonham drum track. Just there's something about his drums on that song. But the carnival breakdown, the samba feel of it. I'm going with "Fool in the Rain," number 5.
Great choice. I mean, that nearly made it to my honorable mentions, and would certainly be in my top 20 songs. But we only had time for 5, and we'll go from there. So, number 4 from Led Zeppelin 1, and incidentally, once I put pen to paper here, I figured out that my top 5 were all from different albums. So, from Led Zeppelin 1, my number 4, it's the last song on the album and the longest song on the album, How Many More Times. I love the bowed guitar, the bluesy bowed guitar in this song. just a fantastic solo by Page. Not my favorite of Jimmy Page's solos, but we'll get to that here in a couple. But it's not Robert Plant's best vocals, but just something about this song. I am at my core musically a blues musician.
I know you are.
I relate a lot to blues stuff, even though, I put a lot of pop and hard rock and funk and jazz in my playing. I really have an affinity for all types of music, but at my core musically, it all comes back to the blues for me. And so I'm a big fan of the bluesy songs, and that's my number 4. How Many More Times from Led Zeppelin 1.
Is that a cover, Jim, or is that an original song?
I don't think that is a cover.
I feel like there are parts of the song I feel like are taken from something else, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think it might reference some stuff in there.
The part with the hunter, I'm the hunter, or I feel like
I'll see what I can find on that. But yeah, to the best of my knowledge, when I was looking through it earlier,
they call me the hunter.
I think it was. They have credit as writers on it, I know. So.
Okay. I didn't know the answer to that question, but I always thought it had maybe taken something from someone else, and I thought, they gave them credit for it, but I haven't read the lyrics credits that closely for the song. I think it's a good song.
According to Wikipedia, the Rosie and Hunter components of the song came spontaneously to the group on the night of the recording session. The Hunter was recorded by bluesman Albert King with Booker T and the MGs.
Okay.
Written by Carl Wells and the members of Booker T and the MGs. Incidentally, Steve Cropper from Booker T and the MGs is one of my favorite guitar players.
So maybe they were, I didn't really know the end. I thought it was like a part cover, but I didn't know the answer to that question. Yeah. So that answers the question for me.
Yep.
I think it's a good song, by the way. And that's a very young Robert Plant, really is a very, very histrionic vocalist at that point.
Yeah, he was not quite into his own yet.
No.
And you can tell that from this song, but that doesn't bother me because I think, to me, that's the genius of Led Zeppelin. Is Jimmy Page's sloppiness, whether it be from substances or whatever, the sloppiness in the playing and the singing, and John Bonham, that guy's like a machine.
Yeah, he's incredible. He's one of the best drummers of all time.
Yeah,
I think that if we just look at each band member on their instrument, I feel like he's probably the best, but what do I know?
I got to see his sister, Deborah Bonham, a few years back, open for a show we went to, and she put on a really good show. But yeah, to me, that's my number 4. How Many More Times? My
number 4 is going to be the Immigrant Song. There was no way I could keep it off. It is their best, I guess, as far as their heavily played radio, like straight up hard rock songs. It's by far my favorite. I think it's so much better than Black Dog or Rock and Roll or Whole Lot of Love, even though I really do like the tribal section on Whole Lot of Love. I love the tribal section, but the rest of the song I can really do without. But Immigrant Song is perfect, pretty much. It's a short song. Plant's vocals, which don't always work for me, really work very, very well on this track. And the very beginning, he's kind of howling at the very beginning of the song. It really works. It's like a Viking cry. I think it really, in some ways, it is very emblematic of the Led Zeppelin mystique. Norse mythology, Thor, driving our ships to new lands. I like the lyrics in the song. It's short. It's powerful. We did Iron Maiden a couple weeks ago. This is probably the godfather of all galloping guitar songs. This is probably the first song I've ever heard. I don't know if anything predates it, but there's really a very pronounced galloping style of guitar playing. Queen would take this and run with it in a couple years. Then next comes Iron Maiden. It would progressively become heavier as the 70s went on. Also, Barracuda by Heart sounds an awful lot like Immigrant Song. I've always thought that, but yeah, I really love the Immigrant Song, and I love the vocals on it too. This is the song that Plant really nails vocally, so it's my number 4.
Good choice. Yeah, you can't go wrong with the Immigrant Song. I just remember hearing that as a young kid, and that opening yell or scream or shout, whatever you want to call it, just every time that'd be on the radio and be like, oh, I like this song, you know.
He's great on this track.
Yep. And while we're on Led Zeppelin 3, my third choice is from Led Zeppelin 3 as well. Since I've Been Loving You, another blues song, a slow blues in C minor. To me, C minor is my favorite key. Anytime I go to a blues jam and they're like, okay, this one's in C minor, I'm like, yes, you know, it's right in the middle of the fretboard. There's not a lot wrong you can do in a key like C minor. And, you know, Red House is in C minor, which, you know, kind of similar feel to this song, really. And I love John Paul Jones's Hammond organ on this, you know, kind of laying down the whole background. He plays bass with the organ pedals rather than an actual bass on this one. I read a story about the Speed King drum pedal that John Bonham used, and you can, if you listen to the song, you can hear it squeak in the song. I don't know if it needed oiled or what, but they started to call it the Squeak King pedal because you can hear it during the song, the squeaking pedal that John Bonham used. And to me, this is the best Jimmy Page solo. This is one of those songs where it was almost like they told Jimmy, they're like, hey, just go for it. Don't worry about anything. And he did. There's just a lot of emotion in this solo, and in the vocals and the drumming and the organ playing. This is just a song filled with emotion for me, as a lot of their blues numbers are. So that's my number 3, Since I've Been Loving You, off Led Zeppelin 3.
Okay, I know a lot of people love that song. It is not a favorite of mine. And I just actually, amongst their blues tracks, it's definitely not my favorite. And I'm not really high on them when they do the blues. Okay. Yeah. And I mentioned this in the Doors episode a couple weeks ago. I really prefer when the Doors do the blues to Led Zeppelin. It just sounds more original for some reason. Yeah. When Led Zeppelin does straight blues, it just doesn't work that well for me. And this is not even my favorite Led Zeppelin blues song. For some reason, this track has always reminded me of Janis Joplin. I can't put a finger on it. It's his vocals on this song.
I can see that.
I just don't really connect with this song. I never really liked it. Definitely, it's one of my least favorite songs on the album, actually. And I prefer Tangerine and Gallows Pole and all that stuff on that record to this song. So we definitely, this is our first big divergence on number 3. My number 3, I'm going back to In Through the Outdoor yet again. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Going back. And by the way, In Through the Outdoor is kind of a cool record in terms of covers. You know, there were 6 different, I don't have it on vinyl, but there are 6 different variations to the cover of this record.
Wow. I didn't know.
And they were all taken, and that's it. The pictures were all taken in New Orleans, I believe, at some little bar where they like to hang out. I mean, when Led Zeppelin came to town, it was a party. We all know that. It doesn't matter if it was New York or LA or Seattle or Cleveland or New Orleans. There was going to be a party. But I think New Orleans was one of their favorite American cities to play. And I think they really liked this one particular bar, and they had 6 different photos taken for the cover of the album. So Led Zeppelin collectors know all about the 6 cover variations of Into the Outdoor. But I'm going with In the Evening. Number 3. Love this song. It's always been a favorite of mine. It's very atmospheric. Okay. And this actually is my favorite Jimmy Page guitar piece.
Okay.
And most people would really disagree. I know they're going to pick something like a blues number like you did, or they might pick something like Heartbreaker, something a little faster, you know, but I'm going with In the Evening because I just like the atmospheric shade as far as the guitars go. I also love John Paul Jones, his keyboard textures that kind of come in behind the guitar. And, you know, Jimmy's playing the Gizmotron on this. And that was something that was invented by the guy from 10cc. I don't know his name.
Godly
And
Cream,
yeah, and I
Lowell
think Jimmy,
Cream, or Low Godly, Kevin Godly, Low Cream, I think.
I
One
think
of
this is
those
the only,
guys.
I think this was the only time Jimmy used it, I think, but he uses it really well, and it's such an atmospheric track
Yeah.
for a guitar piece, and I love the solo on it. Love the solo, and it's kind of, it has some ambient textures thrown in with it as well. It's kind of a hard rock song, and it's kind of ambient at the same time. I like the balance of it, and Plant again is singing in lower tones, and I think I prefer him in lower tones for the most part. But yeah, the synth textures by John Paul Jones do a lot to enhance and accentuate the song. Again, I like the use of the Gizmotron on the track by Page. He is going to be one-upped in a couple years by some guy by the name of John McGeoch, though. But that's a couple years down the road. But yeah, this is my favorite Jimmy Page guitar piece. I'm going with the In the Evening, number 3.
Great choice. Can't go wrong with that one, that's for sure. My number 2, guess what? Another blues song. I went with off of Led Zeppelin 2 this time with the Lemon Song.
Oh,
Now this is it is a cover. You know, it's Killing Floor, written by
Robert Johnson. Is it
Howlin' Wolf.
Robert Johnson?
Howlin' Wolf.
Oh, it's Howlin' Wolf. Okay.
Yep, Chester Burnett.
I always thought it was Robert Johnson. Jeez.
Killing Floor was covered
Okay.
by Mike Bloomfield with his band. You know, been covered hundreds of times, and then they threw in, you know, some pieces from. Well, there is a reference to Traveling Riverside Blues.
Yes, that's what I was thinking.
Robert Johnson, and that was borrowed from him, and I think Robert Johnson borrowed it from somebody else, and who borrowed it from somebody else, like is, you know, done with all blues music. It's all borrowed.
It is. It's passed down, right?
We all share the blues. We've all had the blues, so we all share the blues.
Some of us still have the blues.
And there's also a reference to another Albert King song, Crosscut Saul, on that song. But another just a classic blues song, and my only cover on this list. Number 2, Led Zeppelin 2, The Lemon Song, my number 2 choice.
So I didn't know that was a straight cover. I did not know that. I actually thought I thought it was kind of like How Many More Times. I thought they kind of incorporated elements of a different song, and I thought it was Robert Johnson. Okay, that's what I thought, because I have always associated this song with Traveling Riverside Blues, which was released on that gigantic box set. You know, with the I don't know what do you call them, crop circles, right? Back in 1992, and they had that Traveling Riverside Blues on it, and that is another song that really conjures the spirit of Robert Johnson. And I don't know if that's a cover or not, Jim. Traveling Riverside Blues. I don't know. I don't. But I've never really liked the Lemon Song either. I have to admit, it's Led Zeppelin 2 is probably my least favorite Led Zeppelin album, if I have to be completely honest. It's either that or Presence.
They stopped playing the Killing Floor portion of the song and just went with the Squeeze My Lemon part in concert as part of a medley with I forget what song, but with one of the other songs that they do. So we disagree on a couple in here.
We disagree on a couple. The art rocker versus the blues guy, right? So, you know, we're down to number 2 now for me, right?
Yep.
My number 2. This is the deepest cut of my 5. It's actually about as deep a cut as you can get for Led Zeppelin. And I want to preface before I mention this track, according to the research that I did, this is Jimmy Page's favorite song on Physical Graffiti. I can see why. It's brilliant. And that's going to be, this is the Physical Graffiti cover, by the way. Again, I don't have any Led Zeppelin on vinyl. I'm not a Led Zeppelin guy, so I don't have any on vinyl, but this is what the cover looks like. You know and love it, folks. And by the way, before I go into the song, this cover is the same place where the Rolling Stones shot the video for Waiting for a Friend. It's the same, I don't know if it's a hotel, but it's in Manhattan. So a little interesting tidbit for you there. The Stones used this place in Manhattan, the same building, for the Waiting on a Friend video, and it's the same place that is the cover for Led Zeppelin Physical Graffiti. So the British rock stars, much of love this place for some reason. But my answer, my number 2, is going to be In the Light. Deep cut. It's about as deep as you can get for Led Zeppelin. I believe Page bows the guitar on this song.
Mm-hmm.
And this song, it's kind of heavy. It's kind of ambient. It is very mystical sounding. It has a bit of a Middle Eastern vibe to it. I like Plant's vocals on this particular track for whatever reason. It also has great texture, meaning it goes from like a very ominous kind of a sound, very lugubrious kind of a sound, and then it kind of goes into a cheerful section. When it goes into In the Light, it goes into the kind of a cheerful section. Then it goes back into the kind of the doom section. I like the changes in tempo in the song. I like the use of the bow by Page on this song. I like Plant's vocals. It just has kind of a mystical feel to it, and I would call this very much an art rock song. And I think this is Led Zeppelin at their best when they stray away from the blues and get kind of artsy. It's my number 2, In the Light.
Good choice. Good choice. All right, to our number 1s here. And my number 1, this was never really a question for me. It's my favorite Zeppelin song and one of my favorite songs ever. Hot Dog. Just kidding. Just kidding. I wanted to see your face.
Oh my God. Please don't say it. Hot Dog is one of the worst songs I've ever heard by anyone. I just had to say it. I can't help it. I can't believe they put that on a record.
All week long, I've been planning on playing that joke on you just to see the look of your face. So I hope everybody stayed tuned in for that because that was well worth it.
Well, did I look surprised?
Huh?
Did I look surprised?
You did. Yeah.
I wasn't acting, by the way.
I wasn't surprised. Shocked, surprised, and a couple other things. You looked a little angry with me for a second.
I was mystified more than anything else.
My number 1 is from the Houses of the Holy album. This is the only Led Zeppelin that I own on physical media. I love this album to death. My favorite Zeppelin album and my favorite Zeppelin song. It's a 7+ minute ballad. Ballad written in response to George Harrison saying that Led Zeppelin couldn't write a ballad. So they wrote this song, and just the mellotron and just the pure emotion of this song. In Robert's vocals, Jimmy's guitar, John Paul Jones' mellotron, who incidentally I think is the best musician in the band.
He is the best musician in the band. Maybe not the best on his instrument. I think that's Bonham, but all around musician, it's JPJ for sure.
Yeah. Yep. And Bonham's drums. This is just an emotional song and just 7 minutes of pure bliss to me. And that's the Rain song. That's my number 1 choice.
Well,
you don't like this one either.
Well, no, I actually do like this one, and it's going to be an honorable mention. Okay.
Okay.
I like it a lot. And I'll explain why. It almost made my top 5. It was one of 7 just on the outside. Okay. This is Jimmy Page's most beautiful guitar work. Okay. It's just beautiful guitar work. I love the Mellotron by JPJ. That's John Paul Jones. John Bonham takes a little bit of a back seat on this one.
He does.
My biggest problem with this song, I have to admit, are the vocals on this particular track. I'll explain about that. It's still an honorable mention, though, and when we do the honorable mentions, I'll explain that. But I think there's a little bit of over singing on this track during the delicate passages where Page is playing these beautiful guitar bits, and I just feel like there might be a few too many ooh yeah 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 yeahs thrown in. And it distracts me from Jimmy's guitar work. It is his most beautiful guitar piece. Not my favorite, that's In the Evening, but it's a great choice, and it's an honorable mention for me.
All right, let's hear your number 1 there, Mr. Luddite.
Well, I don't have it to show you, but you just saw the album that my number 1 is going to come from. It also comes from Houses of the Holy, okay? And you saw Jim's vinyl, everyone. I used to have this on CD. I was trying to figure out where it went, and then I realized I on one of my Neil Cassidy style cross country journeys back in 2006, I left it in Tucson, Arizona. Back in 2006, that's where I don't know what happened to it, but I hope the person who has it enjoys it. Okay.
Were you standing on a corner in Tucson, Arizona?
Is that an Eagles song?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. No, I was more like it was
Winslow, Arizona, but
yeah, I was more like at a bus stop, not a bus stop, but a Greyhound bus station. It was one of those Neil Cassidy style things on the road, whatever. It's No Quarter. Without any question, No Quarter off Houses of the Holy is officially my favorite Led Zeppelin song. It has always been my favorite Led Zeppelin song. It was my favorite Led Zeppelin song in 1987, and it remains my favorite Led Zeppelin song. It's the ultimate Led Zeppelin art rock statement. Okay. It was composed, I believe, by John Paul Jones. So it was kind of his idea, but everything that Jimmy does on it really works. I love Jimmy's guitar work on this song. Look, I don't know. You're a guitar player. I'm not, but it sounds like he might be playing in drop D tuning. I don't know. Even though it's really not heavy, it has a very ominous feel to it, the guitar work. But what I really love about this song, okay, this is the finest example of synesthesia in Led Zeppelin's entire catalog. You get the sensation of being underwater when you listen to this song, okay? It sounds positively sub-aquatic. Jimmy's guitar work, there's a lot of low end on it, very weighty, not heavy, but weighty. And whatever John Paul Jones is doing on, I don't know if it's a keyboard and an organ on the song, but it just sounds subaquatic. And then the piano bit by John Paul Jones is just gorgeous to me. Gorgeous. I love Bonzo's drumming on this. He's not the star here. This is kind of John Paul Jones, Jimmy Page thing, okay? I think John Paul Jones is the one who really makes this song work, though. It's a band effort. What's great about it, though, is this. A lot of time, Plant's vocals can be a little bit over the top and maybe a little too many histrionics for my taste nowadays, anyway. His style really works on this song. For whatever reason, the moans and the groans and we go back to the mystical references with Thor, right? And war, Thor, Norse mythology coming into play again. I love everything about this song. I think it's the ultimate Led Zeppelin song. It's certainly their best art rock song. And I'm going to gravitate toward that side of the band as opposed to the blues or the straight up hard rock. No Quarter is my definitive Led Zeppelin song, #1 of all time. Always was, always will be.
That's a good choice. I'm just checking here to see. I don't think Jimmy tuned down a lot, but I think he used a lot of open tunings from time to time. I don't know if he did on this song. I haven't studied enough from a playing standpoint to know if he used an open tuning or not on that. So I'd be interested to find out.
This song could have came off Pink Floyd's Metal, okay? In a lot, you know what I mean? It has that kind of a feel to it.
Yeah.
But it's not heavy, but it's a bit heavier than that. But it has a really ominous feel to it. It is a haunting song. And this is one of those tracks where I really do love Plant's vocals on this particular track. It works on this song.
Let's run down a few honorable mentions here that each of us have. And we're over our 30-minute mark that we try and go by. So we'll run these down quickly and a big announcement for next week's show. So stay tuned for that. Since I chose an honorable mention from each of their other albums, from Led Zeppelin 4, I chose When the Levee Breaks. From Presence, I went with Nobody's Fault But Mine. I've just always really liked that song for some reason. I think it was because when I had that album floating around the house that I put that on, so it just takes me back to that when I was like 8-10 years old, again, listening to that album. And from In Through the Outdoor, I had Carousel Alhambra as my honorable mention. So between my top 5 and honorable mentions, I've got one from each album. Although there's plenty of others in the catalog that would fit that as well.
I've got 7 honorable mentions, okay? And my first one out, Fool in the Rain eclipsed it in the end. You can thank for the Creatures for that, I think. Battle of Evermore. I like Sandy Denny's presence on this record, and I love the mandolin. It was the first one out. Almost got in the top 5. The other ones, the Rain Song, Beautiful passage, guitar passages by Jimmy. I just don't love the vocals on this song, but it's a great guitar piece. Over the Hills and Far Away from Houses of the Holy, which is my favorite Led Zeppelin album. Great acoustic and electric guitar blend. The Crunge, also from Houses of the Holy, love it. Funky. James Brown tribute, I adore that song. Cashmere is an honorable mention. It's just overplayed, folks, but we can't deny the brilliance of the song. Achilles' Last Stand from Presence. Great layering of guitars by Jimmy Page on the sax. It's actually kind of progressive, to be honest.
That was
Great
nearly
track.
my choice from that album.
What was that?
That was nearly my choice from.
Achilles' Last Stand is great. Yeah, it's definitely the only song I like on Presence, okay? And also, like you, Carousel Alhambra from Into the Outdoors, also an honorable mention. I have no idea what the song is about lyrically. There's a lot of warbling going on, but I actually like the music on it a lot. It might be their most experimental track. Disco Prague, anyone?
Yeah.
All right.
All right. So there you have it, folks. That's our top 5 Led Zeppelin songs with a few extras there, and nothing the same on either one other than Carousel Alhambra.
Carousel Alhambra is an honorable mention. Yeah.
And you had my number 1 and your honorable mention.
Yeah, Rain Song is an honorable mention for sure. Beautiful guitar work by Jimmy in that song. Wow.
Yep.
Yeah.
So next week, we are celebrating 50-year birthdays for albums. And we're going to pick our 3 top albums from 50 years ago, albums that turned 50 in this year, 2022. It was a great year for music. A lot of good hard rock albums, a lot of good prog albums, a lot of debuts. You know, you had the Styx debut. You had, what else here from the top of my head? The Blue Oyster Cult debut. There were a lot of good debut albums that year as well. I started looking today through some of the albums, and I think I mentioned earlier I've got it down to about 30. And I'll whittle that down with some listening this week to pick my top 3 favorite albums. So thanks for joining us, folks.
Thank you, folks.
Make sure you tune in next week.
Please like and subscribe.
Yes, please like and subscribe. Thank you.
See you next